This is part 2 of the road trip of the Beckworth Trail, Truckee Meadows to Bidwell's Bar. With just a brief review of part 1, we're going to start out at the Truckee Meadows, where the Beckworth Trail splits off from the California Trail, as seen on this map here. Traveling along using the driving guide and T-markers placed by Trails West, Inc. Starting at the Truckee Meadows, going across White Lake and over Beckworth Pass to Sierra Valley. From there, across Grizzly Valley and over Grizzly Ridge to American Valley, current site of Quincy, California. We're going to start our tour right where we left off at part 1, in front of the Plumas County Museum. Leaving the town of Quincy, we're going to head north on Highway 70, past the airport, and past the Feather River College, which is just off to the left. Just past the CHP officer on the right, we are going to make a left onto Purdy Lane. Heading north on Purdy Lane leads to some private property where Elizabethtown once stood. Elizabethtown, California was a gold rush town that began in 1852. It was named after a woman in the miners' camp called Elizabeth Stark Blakesley. It is said that the value of gold taken from Elizabethtown area ran into the millions of dollars. The population of Elizabethtown got up to around 2,500 people between 1853 and 1856. In 1857, the demise of the town started due to the Comstock mines in Virginia City. Many residents ended up living in Indian and Honey Lake valleys. Many buildings were moved to Quincy and rebuilt there, and slowly the town dissolved into history. The next Beckworth Trail T-marker is at the base of the hill where Elizabethtown once stood. The inscription on the next trail marker reads, "Passing some miners at work, came to a small stream and to the foot of a very steep hill, which we climbed with a great deal of yelling at cattle and the loss of considerable sweat. Alpheus Richardson, September 10th, 1852. When the trail was first opened in 1851, it climbed up Immigrant Hill behind the marker and ran along the top of the ridge. This section of trail was not used after the toll road was constructed west of Quincy along Spanish Creek in 1855. Just west of the T-marker is the Elizabethtown stone and metal monument that was placed by the native sons and daughters of Quincy, September 9th, 1927. The Beckworth Trail went up the hill behind the two markers. In order for us to get there, we had to go back out to Highway 70 and then turn left on Snake Lake Road. The trail climbed a ridge out of the Elizabethtown area, and we'll meet up with it right about here. Traveling in a westerly direction, we're coming upon our next marker. As we approach this marker, trail sign can be seen straight ahead. The inscription on marker 26 reads, 10 o'clock and in 3 miles took the mountain again at a moderate grade. which gradually increased to, in some places, 2-to-1 grade to slope. To the summit, 2 miles. Joshua Varial, September 16, 1852. Here we're going to continue in a westerly direction on Snake Lake Road. The original trail rode the ridgeline just off to the left. At the urging of Mr. Turner, the proprietor of the American Ranch, Beckworth was directed to join his trail from the east to the Indian trails then being used by the miners to reach Rich Bar and other newly discovered placer deposits along the east branch of the North Fork of the Feather River. Conditions of these trails were such that in 1851, the author of The Shirley Letters and her husband became lost several times as they traveled between Bidwell Bar and Rich Bar. The undeveloped nature of these Indian trails, however, allowed Beckworth an opportunity to formalize his route with no concern about competition. Local folklore has it that Beckworth and his companions acquired a cow and herded it along the proposed trail. This was supposedly done to measure the ease in which a cow could walk the trail, assuming this would be an indication of the ease in which a wagon could traverse the same ground. The only reference to a cow, however, is Beckworth's mention of a bull that was killed for provisions. From the Snake Lake Road, we're going to double back a little bit and climb this little road to the next marker. The inscription on this next marker reads, "Cross some very rough and hilly road. The men with the loose horses taking a near cut and following a trail was impassable for wagons. We paused a camp where some miners were settled who had been there since July. James Woodworth, August 16th, 1853. Looking up from the marker, you can see trail sign right there. As we continue to the next marker, Snake Lake Road stays more on the ridge, which is an indication to me that we are actually on the original trail. Beckworth traveled to Bidwell Bar in Marysville in 1851 to promote his trail and gather subscriptions to fund construction. The Marysville Herald carried several articles in June and July of that year that mentioned the trail as well as the fact that people could take out subscriptions in his venture. On this trip, Beckworth visited a mayor of Marysville, a Mr. Miles. Miles thought the speculation would yield somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 profit, and verbally guaranteed Beckworth's expenses in making the road passable. In the summer of 1851, Beckworth rode out to the Truckee Meadows to persuade immigrants to try his new route. While waiting for a wagon train, he took sick. When a passing wagon train stopped and gave him aid, he convinced them to use his trail. This in itself was something of an achievement, for immigrants had become very skeptical indeed about trying cutoffs. Ina Coolbrinth, who later became Poet Laureate of California, was one of those in his wagon train. She must have been impressed with Beckworth, because she recalled later, "Ours was the first of the covered wagons to break the trail through Beckworth Pass into California. We were guided by the famous scout Jim Beckworth, who was a historical figure. When we made that long journey towards the west over the deserts and mountains, Our wagon was driven over ground without a single mark of a wagon wheel until it was broken by ours. And when Jim Beckworth said he would like to have my mother's little girl ride into California on his horse in front of him, I was the happiest little girl in the world. This is from the Oroville Mercury Register, August 13th, 1939. And here we're approaching marker number 28. The inscription reads, "From the top, we drove down 2 miles and camped at the head of Meadow Valley and had fine grass here. We found some mountain strawberries and saw some of the largest kind of fir trees." Alpheus Richardson, September 10th, 1852. On our way to the next marker, we're going to cross the paved part of Snake Lake Road, just north of the Sheriff's Gun Range. Passing over Waponzie Creek on our way to Spanish Ranch. Starting in 1850, a string of hotels were established between American Valley and Bidwell's Bar. Spanish Ranch was one of the better known ones. And here we're approaching marker 29. The plaque reads, "Thence down 8 miles, quite steep but smooth road, to the Spanish Ranch and camped. Tolerable grass, good water and wood, gold diggins all around us. Visited one on a branch carried on extensively." John Dalton, August 31st, 1852. Continuing on from Spanish Ranch, we're going to make our way into Meadow Valley, which is the spot of the next marker. The plaque on this marker reads, "Found on gathering the cattle this morning that our bull was missing. Hunted until near noon, then crossed the hill to Meadow Valley. Went back and hunted. This valley outknown, he was stolen. Elizabeth Peckinpah, September 9th, 1853. The trail continues along Bucks Lake Road and then turns south to go along Meadow Valley Creek. From here, the trail rides the ridge line above Taylor Gulch to where it eventually meets up with the east branch of Big Creek. We just turned onto Big Creek Road, also known as the new Bucks Lake Road, and we'll meet up with the trail at the east branch of Big Creek. Turning right here, we're going to go up a little dirt road that goes up Eagle Gulch. And we'll stop right up here to find our next marker. Marker number 31, labeled Big Creek. The inscription reads, "This morning, loaded up our hay and proceeded down this valley 2 miles and then came into a main road and drove on this 2 miles to a small stream. then drove up it 2 miles and camped. Alpheus Richardson, September 12, 1852. Continuing up this section, the trail parallels Eagle Gulch and is headed towards Buck's Summit, which is also along the Pacific Crest Trail. Referencing the topographical maps I found at the Plumas County Museum, this road or trail is along the actual Beckworth Trail, headed towards Buck's Lake Summit. As you can see, this trail's suffering badly from lack of use. And then when I came across the tree up here that had fallen across the trail, I decided to turn around, go back to Big Creek Road, up Bucks Lake Road to the summit, where I got out and started walking along the Pacific Crest Trail, where our next marker is located. Here we're on a section of the Pacific Crest Trail looking back, and then looking forward and walking towards the next marker. The next marker at Buck Summit has an inscription that reads, "Started early and moved on to the foot of the mountain. We found the ascent very difficult, having some very bad hills to get over. We had to take everything out of the wagon and pack on the loose mules." James Woodworth, August 17, 1853. From here we continued on down Bucks Lake Road to the east end of Bucks Lake. Today, this is where Bucks Creek flows into Bucks Lake. Back in 1851, this was an open valley, and the trail went right down the middle of it. And the trail goes right through there. Zooming in a little bit, you can see a building off to the left, which is where the marina is at. The trail turned left, went up the little ravine, and that takes us to our next marker. Here we're paralleling the trail along Bucks Lake Road. And here we're at the marina and heading up towards our next marker at the Bucks Lake Lodge. This next marker reads Bucks Valley. Crossed the mountain today, which was something more than a molehill and an anthill too, encamped in Bucks Valley on Tom Irons Ranch. Elizabeth Peckinpah, September 10th, 1853. Here we continue down Bucks Lake Road at Haskins Valley. The highway was constructed over the trail in this area. This next marker reads, "Camped in order to cut some grass to feed along the road ahead," and also an account of P. Linthicum, who was still very sick, not expected to live, also to recruit the cattle. John Dalton, September 3rd, 1852. Our next marker is right here in the trees off of Grizzly Creek. The inscription reads, "Thence across a brook with high banks where Squire Stevens upset the wagon he was driving, in which was Philip Linthicum, and he was hurt very badly." John Dalton, September 4th, 1852. As you may have noticed, reading the inscriptions on the last two markers is mention of a Philip Linthicum who was very sick or hurt very badly. About a quarter mile up the road from Grizzly Creek is the Philip Linthicum gravesite. He died along the trail in September of 1852 at the age of 19. This marker was erected in 1931. Originally, there was a carved section of a tree with Linthicum's name on it, and that section of tree can now be seen at the Plumas County Museum. Here we continue down Bucks Lake Road to marker 36. The inscription on marker 36 reads, "1 mile to good grass and water, taking the left-hand road. Here we cut grass for the mountains tomorrow, and moved down the valley some 4 miles, and camped. 8 miles today." Joshua Verrill, September 20th, 1852. And here's a section of the original trail with wagon ruts worn into the rock. Very clear signs of the trail here as it continues on up to the right and will stay along the ridgeline. And here we are riding along the trail on Ridge Road to our next marker. The inscription on this marker reads, "This road passes down the dividing ridge between north and middle forks of the Feather River. It is worse going up than coming down. Wagons come down this road that cannot go back." Joshua Verrill, September 21st, 1852. From here we're going to continue down Bucks Lake Road, and as you look to the left, there's evidence of a forest fire. That was from the North Complex fire that happened in 2020. It was a fire that consumed over 300,000 acres. And here we're approaching marker number 38, Soapstone Hill. As we approach this marker, we can clearly see a remnant of the actual trail. The inscription on this marker reads, "We got some hay of iron at 4 cents a pound and started." We traveled for several miles along a high ridge, which rose high above a point between us and the Sacramento Valley, which gave us a fine view. James Woodworth, August 18th, 1853. From here, we're going to walk down this section of trail and see many examples of deep wheel grooves worn into the soft soapstone rock. From here, on our way to marker number 39, we're going to take a short detour to a soft soapstone rock called Frog Rock, which was used as a geographical marker along the trail. And here we are approaching marker number 39 that is located, like many others, on a section of the original trail. And as you can see, more placards and historical information on the trail. The trail went right up through here. Heavy damage on this section of the trail due to the forest fire. And here's what it looked like just a few years ago. The trail marker placard reads, "Traveled all day through thick forest of hemlock and oaks, over hilly country with no feed. Our poor beasts have had to climb along over the hills with nothing to eat. There was nothing but weed for them." William H. Woodhams, August 1st, 1854. Continuing down Bucks Lake Road to marker number 40. The trail marker is right up here on the right. It reads, "Started at 8 o'clock and traveled a hilly, dusty road. Part of it very rough, about 18 miles to the mountain house, and camped. No grass, good wood and water. John E. Dalton, September 5th, 1852. Continuing down Bucks Lake Road, there's more and more forest fire damage. So much that some of the markers are beginning to be harder to find. Passing by the skid marks and in amongst the fallen trees, we find marker number 41. The inscription reads, "Got a good start and took the hills, which are more down than up, rough road and crooked, and went to Peavine Ranch at dusk, after a hard day's drive, 18 miles. Joshua Varial, September 21st, 1852. And here's a picture of what it looked like before the fire. Continuing down the road, we're headed to our next marker, which isn't there anymore. The inscription did read, "Dare not let our cattle run loose here, for fear they will get poisoned. Heard of it before we came and bought our wagon load of hay with us. Tied him in a corral, which is but poor." Elizabeth Peckinpah, September 13th, 1853. The marker was just off to the left. And here's a glimpse of what it looked like before the fire. And this is that same location today. Somewhere along here, the road changed names to the Oroville Quincy Highway. Regardless, we've arrived at marker number 43. This marker reads, "Today the road descends the greater part of the way and very steep in places. While descending one hill, one of the teams became unmanageable and ran against a tree and broke the tongue out of the wagon." Alpheus Richardson, September 14th, 1852. How it looks today, and what it used to look like. Another 2.5 miles down the road, into the foothills, is marker number 44, Mountain House. The inscription reads, "In 2 miles from Mountain House, encamped 1.5 miles from the road on very little grass. Fear our stock will have a poor supper tonight." Elizabeth Peckinpah, September 14th, 1853. The marker is about 20 yards east of the site of an old hotel. The hotel was totally destroyed in a forest fire in 2019. This is what the old hotel looked like, and this is what it looks like now. Continuing on down the Oroville-Quincy Highway to another marker that is now missing, marker number 45. Its plaque read, "Left our miserable stopping place before sunrise. Went on 6 miles, then went off the road 1.5 miles for feed of the mostly wretched description. This evening we were visited by a large party of Indians." William Woodhams, August 2nd, 1854. This is what the trail used to look like before the fire. Another couple miles down the road, and we're going to reach marker number 46, near a ranch. The plaque on the marker reads, "We traveled on for 15 miles. We stopped near a ranch at which we bought 8 pounds of barley and cooked a squirrel, which I had killed, and some beef, which we bought at 35 cents a pound." James Woodworth, August 18th, 1853. From here, we're going to keep on descending to Madrone Lake. The original trail is located west of the marker, where a small valley comes in from the right just before the bridge. The Berry House was in business here in 1851, and a small sawmill commenced operation here in 1852. The inscription on the marker reads, "We left here at 4:30, intending to go as far as Bidwell Bar. We passed on a bridge which crosses a pond made by damming a stream for the purpose of running a sawmill, which is situated here." James Woodworth, August 19th, 1853. This is Madrone Lake, and this is the little canyon that the trail came down, and the trail crossed right here. Continuing down the road to marker 48. This one was a little bit harder to find as it was inside a fence and a blackberry bramble. The inscription on the plaque reads, "The road leads down this canyon 3 miles, then it runs over some small hills. And 3 miles from the canyon, we came to the Feather River at Bidwell Bar. Alpheus Richardson, September 15, 1852. On our way to the next marker, we're making our way through the Foreman Creek Recreation Area. Turning right on Foreman Creek Road, heading to the north end of Lake Oroville. The original wagon train arrived in Marysville the day the town burned. There were 2 disastrous fires that swept through Marysville, August 30th and September 10th. Most historians have used the date of the first fire for Beckworth's arrival. Because of the fires, the mayor reneged on his promise to Beckworth, this leaving Beckworth to foot the bill of some $1,600 for clearing the trail. There was even some rumor that the reneging of payment took place first, then the fire, but we'll never know. Many of the affluent immigrants would take a stage from here to Marysville, leaving the care of the wagons to their teamsters. The depression behind the marker is the trail trace. The inscription reads, "Passed down the mountain, part of the way rough and very dusty, 18 miles to Bidwell's Bar, on the middle fork of the Feather River. Here is quite a town of canvas buildings, and mining is carried on extensively. John E. Dalton, September 6, 1852. Continuing on to the Foreman Creek boat launch, the trail goes right across there. Continuing to our final marker, the trail had a slight cutoff, which led to Oroville. The inscription on the placard reads, "Started for Marysville with good road at noon, hitched up and plodded on our dusty road to Marysville, where we arrived about 4 o'clock. This is a busy little place, but they had just had quite an extensive fire. William Woodhams, August 5th, 1854. And this completes our road trip of the Beckworth Trail.